Okay, next, the change management. So we spoke about this in brief, and just to touch on it again, there are going to be changes, internal, external. There's going to be regulatory changes, new rules, new requirements. Fatigue risk is one such requirement, because since the initial concept of safety management, we've now added fatigue risk management basically on top of it. If you have a look at the latest iteration of 1321 regarding 145, and have a look at the roles and responsibilities of the production planning group, you'll see that now fatigue risk management is included in the roles and responsibilities of production planning. That doesn't mean that your production planners have got to do fatigue risk management, but it means the organization has to. And as long as you can demonstrate compliance with that requirement by doing it in a way that meets your objectives, maybe our safety management team is looking at it, not the production planning team, for example. So regulatory changes, management changes, equipment changes, changes in procedures, processes, or manning levels, expansion or contraction. All of these are potential areas. And of course, there's more besides this. So, quick checklist. Is the change fully described? Have we identified and documented the hazards? Who's going to do this? So, can we use the safety manager as a facilitator? Who has got the subject knowledge to be able to engage with the hazards? Because without that subject knowledge, you're not going to be doing strong risk assessments. Have we risk assessed all newly identified hazards? Do we have accepted risk controls in place related to the changes? The change management process should ensure that any hazards associated with the change are formally and systematically identified and managed, and that a formal process exists to ensure the management of the change is continually evaluated and monitored. Now, just as an example, imagine you're demonstrating that to somebody else who's auditing your organization. How will you do it? How will you do what? How will you do each part of that? How will you show how you capture the changes? How will you show how they're documented? Where are they documented? Do we have a change management register, for example? Or do we include change management in our standard risk register? It's also possible. We could identify that the driver for it is a change document, and we've got a reference number for that document. So formal process. Who owns the process? Could it be the safety manager? Yes, why not? Could it be a business area owner? You decide. There isn't a rule requirement here. The management of the change is continually evaluated and monitored. So who's going to do this? Well, actually, two groups can do this, because the changes can be audited by the compliance guys as part of the internal audit program. And as they look at departments, they can look at changes. Have the changes been documented? Have the procedures been updated? Is any training required related to the change in the procedures? Where is that training? Who is doing the training? How is it controlled? How is people the training recorded? If a new person joins, what training will they get? Who will give it them? And so on and so on. You see how it develops. And many organizations rely on having an easy time with regulatory audit. But I promise you it's going to get harder and harder. And there is a takeaway from this, and it's this, that we all have, everyone here has access to the regulation, whether we're looking at 145A 45 or 145B 45. When we look at 145B 45, we can read very, very carefully everything that EASA expects the regulatory authority to do in order to meet their obligations. Now, we don't get the option to audit the regulatory authority, but they get the option to audit us. But I promise you, if any of us were auditing the regulatory authority against 145, B45, that we would quite easily find multiple things that are wrong. So what happens? So periodically, and I'm talking maybe once every 2 years, EASA comes and does an oversight audit of the regulatory authority. And there's a quick dusting of the process procedures, and just like some organizations do. We're going to be audited next month. Let's get everything ready. So the regulatory authorities do the same thing. So there are gaps and disconnects. But at the end of the day, and this is the important takeaway, the buck stops with the 145 organization. If it's effectively managed, if we're on top of our control processes, if we're developing competence, if we're growing our processes, our business will flourish. If we don't, we just seem to be constantly struggling, and we lose our best people. And this is, I've seen where organizations just slowly die because they can't keep good people, because the good people see opportunity somewhere else. But in a strong organization, people are happy because of their quality of the work that they're doing. And you know, not everybody wants to work for a large organization. I was working for a company in the 1980s called British Caledonian, and my company ceased to exist. It was basically swallowed up by British Airways, and I received a letter from Human Resources, and it said, "Dear 115961." That's what it said. That was my staff number, incidentally. And I thought, it's time to leave, because that's not how I want to engage in my work life. I'm sorry. I'm not a number. I'm a person. And so I did. I went to pastures new.